What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro v Pro. Pretty exciting week last week. Exciting week this week. Feels a little bit like we're in a down stretch of the season, but some big exciting news. Justin and I have moved into the top 200 of the Pat Mayo one and done contest out of like 4,400, something like that. So we're making a run at this thing. And Justin, how do you feel about Cam Young's second place finish for us a week ago?
Well, I think it just kind of speaks to like the way that we look at golf, right? Is we kind of found out where we stood with everybody and then found who had the most upside, right? And that's kind of why we ended up on Cam Young. Yeah, it was fun. I thought he was going to get it done. He just got outplayed. He didn't play bad. He didn't choke. He just got outplayed. Hats off to Peter Malnati and the way he played.
Yeah, I think it was on Saturday when I tweeted a picture of the leaderboard and said he's not going to face a path of less resistance than this one. But to Malnati's credit, he came out and played really well. There's a lot of talk around the industry of like, oh, Cam Young can't even get it done. He's losing to Peter Malnati now. And it doesn't matter what the name of the guy is. It doesn't matter what color his golf ball is. If he comes out and shoots 4 under on the final round on a really difficult golf course when he's starting the day a stroke ahead of you, it's going to be hard to track that guy down.
Well, and not just that, but I mean, it's not like this guy's never won before. It's not like he hasn't been on the PGA Tour for a long time. Just because he's not a huge name that we know of doesn't mean that he can't play. I mean, there's a reason he's out there. So, and there's a reason I think there's something to be said about the fact that he had won before as well. I think that even though it was forever ago, right? It was 9 years ago, but still, he's a really good dude. I'm happy to see him win. One of my really good friends, Michael Martinson, caddied for him for a long time. So it's pretty fun to see him win. Yeah, I mean, obviously we'd love to have seen Cam Young get it, but if you'd have told me, hey, one and done, you're going to use Cam Young and he's going to finish second, we said we would have taken it, I believe.
Yeah, a couple of the things I want to mention about this. Before the last round began, we ran a simulation of the round. Cam Young was winning 7% of the time in that simulation. So for him to get second and not the win, it's really, really hard to win golf tournaments. It's especially hard to win golf tournaments when you're starting the day 3 strokes back and behind as many players as he was. I was pretty pleased with the performance. Gained 0.6 strokes for the week putting as well. So that's now 4 of the last 6 events that he's gained on the greens. Things are looking up, I think, for Cam.
Yeah, I agree. And there's some discussion out there of like, and I'd like to get your take on this. If this was an elevated event and you had the best players in the world, how many shots better would the winning score be? 3?
Yeah, I think something like that because the course doesn't let you go that low and sustain it. Like we saw scores were incredibly bunched this week near the top, and they were bunched going into the week, like where the cut line was even par. The leading score at that time was only 6 under, so yeah, I don't think it would have been much better. I think the cut might have been a couple strokes better. I think like the cut might have been 2 under if you had the same type of cut rules and you just had a better field. Obviously, if you had the 70 guys playing for 50 spots, and the cut might have been +2 because you just it's harder to make it. But yeah, I think I agree that the winning score wouldn't have been that much better.
Yeah, I said 3 would be the absolute max, and I could see that 14 under being good enough to win against anybody. It's hard to tell because it depends on what Scotty Scheffler does. It seems like right now to even matter about anybody else. But basically we're saying could Scotty Scheffler shot better than 14 under? No, it was just I saw some chatter about it, and that's why, Malnati's interview was so good about, come on, PGA Tour, let's not be dumb about changing all this stuff, and basically the dead opposite of the Wyndham Clark interview. Yeah.
That was refreshing to see, and obviously it's expected from him, and I think it's why he had been getting the sponsors invites too. By the way, is because I think he's just a very respected person on the tour. People want his thoughts. People want him involved. Last thing in the final round, how about that Xander Schauffele finish? 6 under on the day, and by the way, he lost over a stroke putting. So if he had putted well on top of the way he played tee to green, there was a very real chance that he would have been, potentially in a playoff or something. That would have been one of the best rounds of the season if he had putted anywhere near as well as he played tee to green.
Yeah, I loved it. This is 2 weeks in a row. I'm like either min cashing or just missing min cash in the full tournament stuff. But I finished second again in the showdown on Sunday, just behind Schauffele and Cam Young. I basically just said, hey, I'm going to build around the two guys with the most upside. Got kind of lucky with a couple other guys that I had in there in the lineup that had kind of played better earlier in the week. So, yeah, it was when you get a guy with that much talent, he's just got such the opportunity to make up so much ground on a golf course like that. But I think the golf course just shows you that if you play really good, you can shoot a low score, but there's just not much forgiveness. I wish we would get a little bit more of that on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, now for the Houston Open, we get another not so deep field, but once again, a field that has some big names at the top. Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, our boy Sahith Theegala, Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau, Siwoo Kim, Jason Day, Keith Mitchell. So lots to look forward to again this week. The Course Fit model is a very interesting one. We made the comparison to Augusta, where there's not a ton of signal on off the tee play, a little bit of a boost to driving distance. So definitely a week where distance matters more than accuracy. But the big similarity is that around the green play matters a ton this week. Putting slightly down, approach play slightly down here at the Houston Open. What names stand out to you immediately from that?
Well, so my first thing is going to be, it just really depends on how the greens are. I know they've been pretty firm the last few years. I'm really positive they've been really firm here. It's that I think that's why that around the green pops so much. I know they've had a little bit more rain this year than maybe they've had in the last couple of years. So I'm going to pay attention to how firm the greens are. I think that's, with the firm greens, it's just going to make that around the green really pop. If they're a little bit softer, I'm going to lean more into guys that hit it far and guys that just kind of spin it a little bit more. And, my Theegala, Zalatoris, Jason Day, like those are the type of guys that I really think are going to play well this week.
I like it. I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. Can you guess who the number one player is this week in this field in our estimate for strokes gained around the green?
It's got to be Jason Day, right?
There are a couple names that jump out. Jason Day's a really good guess. He's about third best at least among the relevant players. Like there are a couple guys down below, like Sunghyun Kim, who probably is technically a little bit better than Jason Day on a per round basis, but that might just be because he gets more shots from around the green, missing more greens, things of that nature. But the answer is Scotty Scheffler. It's like he's just so incredibly good that he now has maybe the single best short game in the world, and people don't even notice because his ball striking's that much better than everybody else's. So just yet another piece of evidence that, man, Scotty's just on another level. Second best is Mackenzie Hughes, then Jason Day. So Mac Hughes could be somebody that we talk a bunch about this week, coming off one of his better finishes of the season and of the last few years.
Yeah, I've already kind of built my DraftKings stuff for the week, and I've literally, I think probably more so than ever, not that I ever shy away from it, but have built on length. Just because if the greens are firm, just the ability to hit shorter clubs and spin it more. It's a very aggressive way to build, I think. Like, I think that I'm looking for guys to maybe really pop. Rico Hoey's one of them. Like, I think that he could really, really play good this week. He hits it really far. There's guys like that I've just kind of built around. I mean, I love Theegala this week. This should be a great place for him to play really well. He's been playing well. I don't know how chalky he'll be. I'm guessing you're going to get a lot more people that pay up for Scheffler and Clark and kind of pass on the middle guys there. I really like Zalatoris this week too. He's been in good form and he's been playing well and seems to have figured out the putter. So I kind of like that top of the board, after you kind of throw out those top two guys. The problem is Scotty Scheffler's so good, it's hard not to build around him.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the GPP scores are going to say. The $13,000 price tag is extremely interesting because it has the potential to bring down his ownership, where just so many people. I mean, it's over a $2,000 gap between Scheffler and the second most expensive Wyndham Clark. So if people decide, hey, I'm okay with Clark as my most expensive, or I'm okay with Siwoo Kim as my most expensive, and just going really balanced. Man, if Scheffler's only going to be 20% on something like that, he's going to have one of the highest GPP scores we've ever seen here at FTN. And on the other hand, if he is still 40% owned and the GPP score isn't screaming to play Scotty, and it is screaming to play, a handful of guys in the $9,000 range, could just really, really sway our strategy this week. So very excited to see what ownership ends up saying. We don't have it yet here early on this Tuesday morning. Need a better picture of things. But before we move into specific players and potential bets, I want to ask you, this is an event that's been played late in the fall of the last 3 seasons. What do you think could change from a course fit perspective with the move here to the spring?
Well, yeah, and I think it comes down to the green firmness, right? Are the greens going to be firm? Have they had enough growth down there to get the rough up at all, or is it still going to be kind of? And I think it's one of very few courses that's played on a muni, right? There's not very many PGA Tour events that are on a pure public golf course like this. I could be wrong about that, but there's the list can't be very long of an actual city-owned golf course of where they play a PGA Tour event.
So if you get the changes where the rough is more up, the greens are firmer, what changes do you see happening to the course fit model? Is that something where driving accuracy is going to become a little bit more important? Maybe distance becomes a little more important. What happens to that around the green signal, approach signal? What do you think would change?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to distance, right? I think it does that a lot. So I think if you could go, obviously, I mean, without even being said, combine a guy that hits it far to give you all the upside, but then also, has the ability to chip and putt it really well, because I don't think there's a lot of hazards here. I think water's only in play in like 3 or 4 holes. So you're not going to get a lot of penalty shots. It's more in trees and still have a chance to get it up around the green and make par. I think that's the biggest deal about that. The around the green really popping is because it just helps with the bogey avoidance, because you're just not hitting it out of play as much, so to speak.
I can see that. I think personally, I'm not going to speculate a ton on what the changes might do unless we get like specific word about the greens definitely are this much firmer. The rough definitely is this much more difficult. Unless we have news about that stuff that we can actually depend on, I think any kind of speculation is more likely to bring you in the wrong direction than the right direction. And in the course fit model, one thing we've seen from other golf courses that do have big changes in conditions from one year to the next is they tend to have at least directionally the same shape of a course fit model. Just, a lot of it is inherent to the design and things of that nature, and less about the conditions themselves. So I'm just going to trust the course fit model unless we have specific reason to know and anticipate some specific change. I'm just going to stick with it.
Yeah. What year is this at this golf course? Because I know they played Redstone before this place, and that's when Spieth.
This is the 4th year at this course.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, 2020, 21, 22, all being in the fall. So, the 2021 and 22 were the 21, 22, and 2023 golf seasons.
Yeah, so because before that, I think Redstone is when they were shaving down all the edges and trying to get it more of a Masters prep golf course. I know Spieth played good at Redstone a couple of times. Yeah, I guess it's here and then San Antonio, so it's just a little different in the schedule. Back in the day, there's no way I would not know this. I would have Monday qualified yesterday and probably been at a pre-Q headed that way today or tomorrow. So it's definitely different. Yeah, I think that this week kind of gets jammed in the middle of all these big golf tournaments, right? And they're just not as much attention. And what's really funny is how great Scheffler is. He doesn't draw the crowd that, I mean, even in maybe a Jordan Spieth or some guys that just move the needle a little bit more. Do you think that that we're going to continue to see this decline in TV ratings like we have over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I kind of think we will, at least until the Masters. But I also think that it's possible that it's just been the time of year and it's coming up on March Madness. I don't know how much of it has to do with just like a random blip in the ratings versus a start of a larger trend. But we'll see over the next few weeks for sure.
I mean, I think the Players was down for the first time in several years. I mean, a lot of the golf tournaments that usually draw a huge crowd, they're still drawing crowd. I don't think they're losing any on course, people coming to actually watch. But I think that the TV ratings, and I do kind of agree. Last week, obviously battling March Madness. I think they'll battle it a little bit again this week. Yeah, it's just an interesting trend, to see if you take anything. I mean, you take it with a grain of salt and see what happens for the Masters, but they have to be worried of what if we get to Augusta. And one of two things, since the live guys are playing, it's either going to be huge and everybody's going to watch, or it's going to be way down.
Yeah, I think the big concern for me is, like, I know my dad is somebody who used to watch a ton of golf tournaments. He barely watches now, and his reason is that he's just not as interested in the tour because 90% of what he hears about the tour is the drama with the live golf tour and all that stuff, and he just is kind of turned off by the whole thing, so he doesn't tune in on Saturdays or Sundays anymore the way he used to. I think that's the type of fan that they're losing more than anybody else, and that's the type of fan that it's going to be the hardest for them to reach back out to, because like that's the type of fan that they can't just win back by finally making the broadcast better, because they're not going to see that the broadcast has improved with things of that nature. So I don't know how they go, but I do think one concern for us as the loyal fan that is watching every single week is if they realize that improving the broadcast doesn't bring those people back, do they actually have a reason to improve the broadcast, or are we just stuck with this subpar product?
Well, and then we can go a step further with this, right? What if you weren't allowed to play DraftKings? They didn't have DraftKings, and that you couldn't bet on it. How many pure golf followers would we really have that are actually watching day in and day out like we have now?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's everything, but there's definitely something to it.
100%, because even if you do have like a favorite golfer that you always want to watch, you're only going to be able to watch them once on Thursday or Friday because of the way they cover golf. Then you maybe can watch him for some of the Saturday round, and then you have to hope that he's in contention on Sunday, or you're not going to be able to watch him then. So yeah, there really isn't a whole lot left. You have to just enjoy the golf itself. You have to enjoy seeing the golf course. And to your point, that group, I think, is smaller than the tour realizes. It may be made up most of the fans back in the day, but I think there's also a sense of, like, back in the day, there was no alternative. There was no other way of life, other way of watching and consuming the sport. So anybody who enjoyed any aspect of it, that's just what they did. Now we are so used to being able to watch any sport the way we want. It's just a different world now. And
then let's go on a step further. And your favorite golfer, right? Say you have a Jack Nicklaus, right? Or even a early Tiger Woods that you wanted to watch all the time. They played 30 weeks a year. Now we're getting the best players in the world playing 15 to 18 weeks a year. And so you're losing, not only is it potluck of what day you get to watch them and if they're in contention, but also they're not playing very much. Yeah. So it's just a different dynamic. And I mean, obviously it's different for us because we're involved in the betting and the DFS side of it. And I think the other thing is we enjoy watching good golf shots and enjoy watching golf as a whole. We take it in more as a product from everybody than one individual. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic and on a rant here, but I just think the tour's in trouble.
Well, it's a perfect segue because now we can talk about, since we are bettors, who do we like in the outright betting market? There is one guy who comes to mind for me. It is Mackenzie Hughes. I haven't made this bet yet, but he's available at 65 to 1. We have him at 1.6% to win. So definite value there. I probably will make this bet. I think Right now, the thing I'm struggling with on him is, let me go back to him real quick. So his best available 65, like I said, on FanDuel. His best available for an each way is down at 50-1 for either Bet365 or Bet Rivers. So I think the move is just a pure outright on FanDuel, even though he's the type of player that I would prefer to have an each way on. But I don't think that that gap is worth it going all the way down to 50. So maybe what I'll do is just hold off and hope that the numbers on the books with each ways available kind of creeps towards that 65-1 number.
Yeah. Man, Mackenzie Hughes is one of those guys for me is I can't figure him out. And I know we talk about this some if we have guys that we just don't figure out. And this is where I think you perform a lot better than I do in situations like this because you're going to be so data driven. Whereas I just have I see him play and then see how he finishes. And then, the times that I have played him, how bad he plays. And it's just, he's a hard guy for me to figure out.
He's somebody we nailed last year at the AT&T, Byron Nelson. He was a part of our huge week that week. And like the similarities, pretty simple. It's that around the green mattered a ton that week. It matters a ton again this week. He really does have one of the best short games in the world. Outside of that, there's almost like no rhyme or reason to when he plays well, when he doesn't. He had a fantastic week off the tee at the Players. He gained over a stroke, and then he loses half a stroke the next week. He barely gained the week prior at Bay Hill. His putting, he had actually lost strokes in 5 consecutive events and then gains 2.4 on the greens at the Valspar. Like I said, there's extremely little rhyme or reason to his game outside of the fact that around the green, he is fantastic. And because of the fact that there's no rhyme or reason in the rest of his game, it means that he's just very volatile from one event to the next, which, again, we actually like when we're in the outright market. Makes him a little bit harder of a sell on the DraftKings side of things, but in the outright market, that volatility is great because it gives him a better ceiling.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a guy slightly lower price than that I thought you might be back on here, and that's Jake Knapp. I just think this golf course is going to be good for him. He hits it far. It's kind of more of like what I'm leaning on this week, and I think he kind of gets – I think that number is just too high, I guess. I think he's mid-50s.
He's 60-1.
Yeah. Okay. So 60-1. Like, I just think that's way too high of a price. I think that he's shown that he has the upside to win. And for a field like this, like where you feel like you're just trying to beat, a couple of guys, I think that he's shown he has the ability to do it.
Definitely. The thing that worries me about Knapp is I don't really know what he's doing off the tee now. If we look at his performances, these are his performances in just distance off the tee relative to the field. Back to the American Express, he gained 11 yards, then 15 yards at Farmers Insurance, then 12 at the Phoenix Open, 21 at the Mexico Open, 24 at the Cognizant at PGA National. Then just 2.5, and then he lost 3.5 yards to the field last week. The reason for this is that he's pulling driver less and less. He's really gone like almost all in on this mini driver. Even when he hits the mini driver, he's not going all out. He's hitting that like little punch cut, just trying to guide it. And it's not coming with an increase in accuracy. He lost over 2.5 strokes per round off the tee at Bay Hill and then lost half a stroke at the Players. Obviously, that 2.5 loss number at Bay Hill, a little bit of an outlier because it came with that, what was it, a 12 or 13 that he made, whatever it was, on the 6th hole where he put 3 in the drink. But regardless, like he's struggling with his accuracy off the tee right now. And the thing that scares me about that is he's doing so while eliminating his distance advantage. I would much prefer to see him struggle while maintaining an aggressive level off the tee and just pump that driver. Know the fact that, look, you might have some bad weeks, but when you're on with the driver, you're going to contend and you're going to have those huge weeks. I don't like this newer strategy that we're seeing from him. Maybe he won't like it either. Maybe he'll look back at the last 2 weeks and say, look, if I'm not becoming more accurate by going to this mini driver more often, then I need to just hit the big one more often. And that'd be great. But I'm curious what your thoughts are here, because this is one where like you probably need a more player-driven, mindset-driven approach than a data-driven approach.
Well, I'm just gonna go with it's a par 70, 7,500 yard golf course, and I think that I'm gonna take the last couple of weeks of hitting the mini driver and stuff as a golf course driven thing, and so I think we're gonna go back to what we saw where he just bombs driver every time. Because of the golf course. I don't know if it's going to be a mindset. Like I agree that I hope he stays with this strategy even on the shorter golf courses, but I think this week with the length of the golf course and the way the golf course plays, you will see a lot of drivers.
If he does that, I will really like his chances. So this might even be something where I don't make a bet prior to the start of the event, but instead I watch his first 3 holes. If he's bombing driver and hitting it well, okay, whatever his number is at, now I like it. It's not going to move enough in the first 3 holes because the books aren't going to be like looking to see, hey, is he hitting driver or the mini driver to start the round? So that's potentially the angle that I'm going to take on him because I think it makes an enormous difference. Like I said, distance slightly more predictive than usual here this week. Accuracy slightly less predictive than usual. So this is the type of place where if he comes out bombing driver, that distance advantage that he gains, which there might only be a few players in this field. Like I would say Wyndham Clark, Keith Mitchell, Luke List. They might be the only guys as long as he is. So this is a huge advantage if he chooses to take advantage of it.
Yeah, Finau probably in that category too. I guess he's got to be pretty close up there. I'm glad you brought up Keith Mitchell. Well, obvious meltdown on Sunday. Do you go back? It should be a great golf course for him.
Yeah, he's another guy I'm on the fence on. I wish that his number was slightly better. Like if I wonder what his number would have been if he hadn't taken the Saturday lead, where he's only 40-1. The best available is 40-1. It's available pretty much any book that you want. So maybe one of those 40s becomes 45 or 50, which would make things a lot easier. We have him at 2.2% to win, so pretty fairly priced as of now. But yeah, like I said, if he hadn't taken the lead, would he be 50-1, 60-1 right now, and we'd be salivating over this number?
Yeah, I would guess. I mean, obviously, they're going to adjust to anybody they see that's in decent form, no matter the meltdown, I think. That being said, I don't know. The bottom line is we're trying to beat a 3-1 Scotty Scheffler.
Front door.
I mean, that's literally all we're trying to do. It's an amazing number. 3-1 is unheard of. I mean, I think I sent you a text as soon as it came out.
Yeah, I mean, we have Scotty at 26.2% to win. So it's when you factor in how likely Scotty is to win, and then you factor in the hold that these sports books take, there's not a whole lot of room left to find value. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is a week where I don't even have an outright. It might be a week where we're solely looking for some live opportunities. I want to check real quick where Thigala is, because 22. So Thigala's at 20. We have him at 6.4% to win. So I think that like there are a lot of guys like this where we do see slight value, but we don't see as much value as I typically like to see when placing my outrights. I'm very particular about my outrights because we get so many opportunities with value with our strategy of just kind of going more towards the long shots on a week in, week out basis. I don't know, man. This might not be a week where I have an outright.
Yeah, I think that I like the idea of a live betting. I think I've got a group right there that in that same group you're talking about that I mentioned before, Zalatoris, Finau, Thigala, Day, that if they start off looking like they're hitting it well and aren't scoring well or whatever, and I can see an increase in value, I might jump in there. The only guy that I stood out that I just thought their number was way too high was Knapp. And that's because of I think that he goes back to hitting the driver this week. So I agree. I just never thought in my lifetime we would see a 3-1 favorite on the PGA Tour.
It's crazy. And the craziest thing about it is I don't even think it's like that bad of a number. We actually have pretty close to that.
What was I mean I doubt you know this, but I wonder what Tiger's like. I wonder what his best the most favorite he ever was.
He was like a minus. I know he was a minus 130 in one event. I think he may have even gotten to like minus 180, something like that. So we're not anywhere close to Tiger range here on Scotty's number, but I would guess that this is as low of a number as we've seen since any of Tiger's.
Yeah,
Again, I don't know that for sure, but
it's
that's
just
my
the we know how volatile golf is.
Mhm.
To think that a guy's volatility is so low and sits such the
Mhm.
top of the number is just amazing.
Yep. There's one other guy that I'm considering for an outright. Robert McIntyre, somebody that we've gone to a lot this season, especially in DFS. We've got him at 1% to win. He's available at 110 to 1 on Bet365 with an each way. I do think there's value there, particularly because of the each way. So that would get us, let me see real quick. That would get us effectively a 27.5 to 1 on his top 5. The best available there is 18 to 1 on FanDuel and DraftKings. So definite value on that each way. I think I'll place that one, and that's probably going to be the only outright that I have coming into the event. And then, like we said, I will look to fire live on either Hughes or Jake Knapp, especially if Knapp comes out aggressive with driver, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of Parker Cootie this week too. I think he fits here. I think he's. I don't have access to DraftKings and FanDuel. I can look it up, but I bet he's got to be 200 plus, I would guess.
He's 200 to 1 on FanDuel, and Caesar's 150 to 1 on Bet365 and BetRivers, where you can add an each way to it.
And I just think his skill set, I think he's kind of figuring it out. I saw his numbers the other day when he practiced at Merito around me, and I go out there and play, and it's just mind blowing how good he drives it. So if he drives it that good this week, and like I said, I've been really heavy on the driver, so that's why I, that's kind of why I lean into him. And obviously that's just knowing him and being around here, and I don't think that's there's no stats, but I mean it's 250 to 1. It's not like it's a huge risk, and I'm not gonna go bet $1,000 on it or anything like that. I just think that he's got a chance to compete, and when he starts to figure it out, I just kind of want to be ahead of the curve on him. And he's only like 5,700 on DraftKings, which that helps you fit a Scotty Scheffler in there if he's super low owned.
His iron play very much stands out for his price. I definitely agree with you there. Are there any other guys from a DraftKings perspective that stand out to you that you expect to be either extremely under-owned near the top, or just somebody who's going to be overlooked and is a good value?
Davis Thompson, 7,300. I really like him this week. Once again, we're back onto the driver deal. He drove it really good here last year. I remember them talking about it. If we get that back, I mean, it's a par 7,500 yard golf course. The reason I'm so big on it is I think people are going to hit driver a lot. Like, I really do think everybody will hit driver a lot. And so that's why some of these guys that are just known for driving it really good. I mean, Knapp's 8,000. That's just the kind of the guys that I'm looking at this week. Davis Thompson, like I said, when I scrolled through, I just thought that was too cheap for his upside. I've kind of talked about him a lot, and anybody that's been around for the last year and this year knows that I'm always looking for a guy that I can visually see has super high upside and maybe just hasn't put it together yet.
Fun fact about Davis Thompson, and this definitely lends itself to your point about his upside. He's one of just 3 players in this field that we have projected to gain strokes in all 5 categories: distance off the tee, accuracy off the tee, approach play, around the green play, and putting. Wyndham Clark and Sahith Theegala are the only 2. Obviously, Scotty, we have projected to lose strokes putting. Otherwise, he'd be in that group as well. But Thompson definitely stands out. He stands out from an expected strokes gained perspective as well. The only question I have is his ownership. Does the whole field view Thompson the way we do? In which case, I'd probably fade. But yeah, other than that, I definitely like that call quite a bit. Somebody else who stands out to me is Siwoo Kim. Siwoo, his driving accuracy is just off the charts right now. We have him gaining over 3/4 of a stroke per round with his driving accuracy alone. Really solid approach play. Of course, he's always outstanding around the green. The poor putter maybe matters a little bit less than usual this week, but he also had a really good putting week at the Players, so maybe he can continue that momentum. The other interesting thing is his event-to-event standard deviation has steadily increased throughout a lot of the season, so up to 2.4% to win. Previously, for this season, he's been somebody that we haven't given any interest in the outright side of things because his event-to-event standard deviation really lowered last year, and the reason for that was his putting. He was just so consistently poor on the greens. now he's showing some spikes, which gives him a little bit more volatility, which again opens up a little bit more of a ceiling. So he's not getting to a point where I'm seeing value on him in the outright market, but it's good to see that his win probability is starting to get more in line again with his expected strokes gained. And we do have him fourth in this field in expected strokes gained. So definitely somebody I might be interested in on the DraftKings side of things if Scotty is taking all of the ownership up top. But we'll have to see what that looks like and what the GPP scores look like once we get ownership. So with that, I think it's time to jump into the one and done conversation. Where are you thinking this week? See if we can get ourselves into the top 100.
I think we're gonna probably end up a little bit ownership based here, more so than normal, because I think it's pretty clear up top that like the one of like four guys, right? For me anyway, would be Thagala, Zalatoris, Day, and Siwoo. And I just think it's kind of going to come down to if we can get one of those four super low owned. I lean Thagala would be first and Zalatoris two, I think, right as of right now, of who I would pick, but I would expect a lot of people to be on Thagala.
We don't have Thagala. We used him at the Sony Open. We do have Day. We do have Zalatoris. We do have Siwoo. We don't have Wyndham. We don't have Scotty. So our options are a little bit limited.
Yeah, so I think it would be Zalatoris and then Siwoo for me. I think if we were going to go, and maybe not having Thagala could be a good thing here because I think he's got to be chalked this week.
I don't think that I would want Zalatoris just because of the course fit model. I'd like to see a heavier weight on both aspects of ball striking. I'd like, particularly driving accuracy and approach play. I'd like to see more of a weight on when we go to Zalatoris. I'd also like to see a de-emphasis on around the green play for Zalatoris. He's got the worst short game in the top 10. Yeah, he's got the worst short game in the top 10 of DraftKings price this week. So I think I might be leaning towards Siwoo unless he's super popular. But yeah, you mentioned Jason Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Day is a solid play as well. We do have Day available. So I think we've got options, but I also kind of like your thought of Jake Knapp in the outright market where, look, if people are definitely going to be down on him, like I think he'll be extremely low owned this week. If we think that the course is going to let him go back to that driver heavy, just bomb it type of game plan, man, I don't think he's going to have anywhere near the amount of ownership that he should given his chance to go win this thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of him this week. The thing about Zalatoris is I just think he has so much win equity that the other stuff doesn't matter if he plays the way he's been playing on these hard golf courses. I think these greens are fairly large too, if I'm not mistaken, like some of the biggest on tour. So I think that I just don't. His short game isn't very good, but he just doesn't miss very many greens, and I don't think he's going to miss very many here either. So,
my only pause there is I think a lot of the time when we see around the green signal, it's automatic that we think, okay, you have to get up and down to save pars. A lot of the time, the around the green signal comes from your ability to turn, par fives into easy birdies because you don't have to hit the green on that second shot. You don't have to stick a wedge to 2 feet. You can just put it anywhere in the vicinity of the green with your second shot and know you're going to get up and down for that 4.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about that. I just, like I said, it's more about win equity, and I definitely could, if we think he's going to be even 8% or 5% owned, I have no problem going away from him. But if we can get somebody like Zalatoris when nobody's on him, that's kind of what I'm looking for. We kind of talk about this a lot, but we're kind of going to win this thing, right? Like we finished 200th. I don't think we're really like, we're going to call it, we did okay this year. We had a solid year, but we want to, get in the top 5 and have a chance come the end of the year. So, I definitely can 100% get behind Siwoo just because he's been playing so dang good and coming off the momentum of the last round. I have a hard time believing that's not going to drive his ownership up.
Yeah, I think ownership is definitely a big concern on Siwoo. And again, we'll have a better idea of one and done ownership once we get DraftKings ownership. Like I think one thing we've learned, we went into the season kind of questioning how much we learn about one and done ownership from DraftKings ownership. I think in time we've learned they pretty much go hand in hand, not in the sense that like, the most popular DFS play, even if he's $7,600, will also be the most popular one and done pick. But when you factor in price and ownership on DraftKings, you learn a lot about the one and done ownership, particularly when guys are priced similarly on DraftKings, like Zalatoris and Siwoo Kim this week. If Zalatoris is 20% on DraftKings and Siwoo is 15%, then you're going to get more one and done ownership on Zalatoris. If Zalatoris is 10% and Siwoo is 25%, then Zalatoris is going to be the one lower owned in one and done. So once we get that information, I think we'll be able to make a much better, much more convicted decision here on one and done. But since we got a lot of names already in the pot, I will throw one more in there. Mackenzie Hughes, talked about a bunch. Another guy that we could be confident will be like 0.5% owned, something like that in the one and done. Somebody who's far more likely to miss the cut than anybody else we've talked about, but I don't think he's far less likely to win. In fact, we've got him at 1.6% to win. We only have Zalatoris at 1.5%. I think you can make a case that we might be slightly high or slightly low on either of those two guys, and that regardless of the course, Zalatoris is always going to be more likely to win. But personally, I don't think that. I think that we are right. And we, by the way, are much higher on Zalatoris for a top 5 or a top 10, which I think that's where you really see the fact that Zalatoris is a better player than Hughes. But it's interesting that we then have Hughes ever so slightly overtaking him in win probability. I think it's one of the advantages of the simulations that we have, and especially the utilization of the different standard deviation estimates that we have for players. We'll have plenty more discussion of one and done. Probably we'll do a lot of that in Discord. Anytime anybody wants our thoughts on one and done, we are always happy to answer in Discord, and we do each week. And then from a DraftKings perspective, you will get all of our favorite plays in the Discord on the optimizer in my article that comes out tomorrow. And then finally, you can catch me as well tomorrow on Tambo's show, talking a bunch of DFS stuff as well. So check that out. And thank you all very much for tuning in. We will catch you next time.